How's it going, guys? It's me again. Happy Passover to all of my brothers and sisters in Israel, because I know right now it is the 14th in Israel, even though it's the 13th here in the States. Today is the day that the Israelites, back in the time of Moses when he was trying to get the Israelites out of Egypt, today was the day that they slaughtered the goats and the lambs that they brought into their household, and they put the blood on the threshold of their doors. And that way, when the angel of death that God sent to Egypt came, he would pass over their houses, right? And anybody who didn't believe, right, obviously didn't put the blood on their threshold. So every firstborn in that household who didn't do that died. And that is a symbol, a representation of what Christ did for us, right? So Christ is the Passover lamb. He is the Passover lamb, right? He had his blood shed for us on the cross so that the angel of death would pass over us as well, and we would be gathered into eternal life. And that is great that he did that for us, so long as we believe and trust. And then after that, the next day after that, the 15th through the 21st, is the 7-day holiday or holy day called the Feast of Unleavened Bread, or Chag Hamatzot, I think is what they call it in Hebrew. Don't quote me on that because my Hebrew is not very good and I don't know exactly, but I think that is what it is. Anyway, for that, God says to get rid of all leaven in your household, and no leaven is to be seen in your household. Now, there's nothing inherently wrong with leaven, right? Because every other time of the year, you're allowed to eat leaven in your bread. But leaven is a symbol in the Bible for sin, right? So if you've those of us who have read and know when Jesus said a little leaven leavens the whole bunch, he was referring to sin, right? He was also talking about and it also is a symbol for bad teaching, right? Which is why he told his disciples to watch out, stay clear of the leaven of the Pharisees, right? Stay clear of the teaching of the Pharisees. Stay clear of the sin of the Pharisees. Why is that? Because they were corrupting, right? And as he said, a little leaven leavens the whole lot. So if a little bit of their teaching, right, influences the lot of their teaching, then having any of it at all is bad. That's why we need to get rid of it. So, a lot of things are going on this month, at least the second half of the month. So, because it is the Passover, I'm going to be reading 2 chapters for this video and then 2 chapters for the next one. And because the day after that is another holy day, and this one is a special holy day that God tells us not to work on, I'll also be doing another 2. So it's another Sabbath, but it is a holiday Sabbath, if that makes sense. Sorry, guys. Apparently, I had to clear off my entire phone just to get some space to make this video. Anyway, we read 30 and 31 yesterday. We're about to read 32 right now. We're just going to hop right in it and start at verse 1. And Laban awoke early in the morning. He kissed his sons and his daughters and blessed them. Then Laban went and returned to his place. Jacob went on his way, and angels of God encountered him. Jacob said when he saw them, "This is a godly camp." So he called the name of that place Manahaim. Then Jacob sent angels ahead of him to Esau his brother, to the land of Seir, the field of Edom. And I'm going to stop there because we have a couple of footnotes. So the first one is about Genesis 32, 4 through 7. The confrontation between the brothers is recorded to illustrate how God sent an angel to save his servant from the hand of a stronger enemy. Furthermore, it shows that Jacob did not rely on his own righteousness, but strove mightily to ensure his safety through practical measures. Indeed, our sages saw in this chapter the textbook of Jewish behavior in this exile, and accordingly we should follow his example by making a threefold preparation in our struggles with Esau's descendants, with prayer, gifts or appeasement, and battle. So, a threefold preparation in our struggles, right? Now, we don't have to worry about Esau's descendants. We don't have to worry about really anybody's descendants except for descendants of Satan, right? So, what we do in this case, from what I'm getting at, is prayer, not to these children of Satan, obviously, but to God, right? We pray to God to protect us. We give our enemies gifts, right? And there's no greater gift to give than love, right? That's why Jesus says to love your neighbor or love your enemy, right? And pray for those who persecute you. There's the first two. And battle. Well, how do we battle the children of Satan? We don't fight fire with fire, right? We fight, so we don't fight them with their own tactics. We fight them with the weapons that God has given us to fight with, right? And that is love, that is prayer. That's just how we wage war. Now, don't get me wrong, there is a time to pick up a sword, right? And fight for, and literally fight for what's right. But most of the time, that is not the way to go. Jesus definitely did not pick up a sword. He will eventually pick up a sword, right? And fight for his children and fight for his world and his universe, right? But until it has to get to that point, and it hasn't gotten to that point yet, God is fighting his battles with love and mercy and forgiveness and kindness and all of those good fruits of the Spirit, all of those good manifestations of the Spirit, right? And that is how we should live our lives today. When we are against struggles, we need to pray, we need to give gifts, and we need to fight, right? We have to keep doing those three things until we win. Anyway, that was one of them. Another one is for 32 verse 4. He sent real angels, says, this is the interpretation of Rashi, who apparently is a well-known rabbi. That was his interpretation, that Jacob sent actual angels instead of just human missionaries. Because the word for missionary, right, or a messenger is the same word for angel, right? Now, since I am a messenger of God, right, and I'm a man, I technically am an angel, right? Because a messenger of God is an angel. An angel is just a messenger of God. I technically am an angel. You, if you are a messenger of God, are an angel. That's why angels don't have a definite form, right? God is the God of creation, and none of his creation looks the same. They look similar, but they are not the same. There are different animals in the heavenly host that have different parts of different animals, right? And that seems weird to us, but if God is the great creator, you know what I mean, then he can make whatever he wants. And if they bring his message, right, then they are an angel. But according to another view, Jacob's emissaries were human. Now, the word that they have here in Hebrew, if I'm not mistaken, is malachim, right? Malachim. And that can be rendered either as angels or human emissaries, not mercenaries. Excuse me, guys. Alrighty, continuing on. He charged them, saying, "Thus shall you say to my lord, to Esau, so said your servant Jacob, I have sojourned with Laban, and have lingered until now. I have acquired oxen and donkeys, flocks, servants, and maidservants, and I am sending to tell my lord to find favor in your eyes." The angels returned to Jacob, saying, "We came to your brother Esau. Moreover, he is heading towards you, and 400 men are with him." Okay, here's another one. The verb garti, I think is what it is. Garti, which means sojourned, implies staying as a stranger. Thus Jacob implied, I have not become a great prince, nor have I achieved status. I remained merely an alien. Therefore you need not hate me for having received Father's blessing, since it has not been fulfilled. Now um, that sheds some light on the situation. So here we see Jacob again trying to weasel his way back into his brother's good graces, right? Now, he wasn't weaseling his way into good graces before, right? But he was weaseling his way into birthrights and blessings. Now he's trying to weasel his way into mercy, right? The numerical value of the word that means sojourned, right? But sojourned as an alien is 613. Thus Jacob implied, though I have served with though I have sojourned with Laban, I have observed the 613 divine commandments and have not learned from his evil ways. And this was the interpretation of Rashi. This was a message that Esau should not trifle with Jacob because his righteousness was still intact. So that's kind of crazy. Now, I don't know if you guys know anything about gematria, but it's basically it's either Hebraic numerology or Israelite numerology. Now, if it's Israelite numerology, then I would say that it's also Hebraic numerology because Israelites are Hebrew. By nature, they are. So that's basically what it is. I don't want to say that it is numerology because I feel like numerology has its own teachings separate from gematria, and gematria is solely based on the Bible, right? For those of you who didn't know, every Hebrew word has a numeric value, and apparently whatever numeric value they have, it relates to some attribute of God or some concept that is found in the Bible, and you can use it as we see Rashi here to further bring light to what the scriptures are talking about. So we have a couple of different interpretations on why Jacob sent these angels, whether they were man or spiritual angels, to Jacob, right? And that's kind of cool because there are some verses in here, some chapters in here that you might never be able to understand unless you know a little bit more about the Hebraic and Israelite culture and the beliefs and the thought processes and stuff that they had, which is it's very nice and refreshing to have read the Bible four times and then come to this and then you still learn something new because there's something that another version of the Bible couldn't capture. And I like that. Okay, so Jacob became very frightened, and it distressed him. So he divided the people with him, and the flocks, the cattle, and camels into two camps. For he said, if Esau comes to the one camp and strikes it down, then the remaining camp shall live, or shall survive. Then Jacob said, God of my father Abraham and God of my father Isaac, Hashem, who said to me, return to your land and to your relatives, and I will do good to you. I have been diminished by all the kindness and by all the truth that you have done your servant. For with my staff I crossed this Jordan, and now I have become two camps. Rescue me, please, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him lest he come and strike me down, mother and children. And you had said, I will surely do good with you, and I will make your offspring like the sand of the sea, which is too numerous to count. He spent the night there. Then he took from that which which had come in his hand, a tribute to Esau his brother, 200 she-goats and 20 he-goats, 200 ewes and 20 rams, 30 nursing camels with their colts, 40 cows and 10 bulls, 20 she-donkeys and 10 he-donkeys. He put in his servants' charge each drove separately, and said to his servants, "Pass on ahead of me, and leave a space between drove and drove." He instructed the first one, saying, "When my brother Esau meets you and asks you, saying, 'Whose are you? Where are you going? And whose are these that are before you?' You shall say, 'Your servant Jacob's. It is a tribute sent to my lord, to Esau, and behold, he himself is behind us.'" He similarly instructed the second, also the third, as well as all who followed the droves, saying, "In this manner shall you speak to Esau when you find him, and you shall say, moreover..." Here we go again, boys and girls. I'm sorry. My alarm went off and it stopped the recording. Okay, let's start over at chapter 32, verse 20. He similarly instructed the second, also the third, as well as all who followed the droves, saying, "In this manner you shall speak to Esau when you find him. And you shall say, moreover, behold, your servant Jacob is behind us. For he said, I will appease him with the tribute that precedes me, and afterwards I will face him. Perhaps he will forgive me." So the tribute passed on before him while he spent that night in the camp. But he got up that night and took his 2 wives, his 2 handmaids, and his 11 sons, and crossed the ford of the Jabbok. And when he took them and had them cross over the stream, he sent over his possessions. Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until the break of dawn. When he perceived that he could not overcome him, he struck the socket of his hip. So Jacob's hip socket was dislocated as he wrestled with him. Okay, I'm going to stop there because I think there was one that I had passed and didn't get to talk about. And that was about chapter 32, verses 10 through 13. So this is the title of this is prayer. This was the second component of Jacob's 3-pronged strategy, for he knew that without God's help, all of man's plans are in vain. So that is something that we all need to take into account because it is true. I've heard people say, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. I've also heard... And I feel that to be true because, man has one way and he thinks it's the right way, but it leads to death and destruction, right? The Bible also says to trust in the Lord with all your heart and mind, and don't lean on your own understanding, right? Because his ways are higher than your ways. So no matter what plans you may have for your life, no matter what plans you may have in general, right? If God is not behind those plans, then those plans aren't going to fulfill themselves. They're not going to work out. So keep that in mind. Alrighty, and we also have a couple more. So, chapter 32:11. Right. "I have been diminished by all the kindness and by all the truth you have done your servant." Okay, so my merits have been diminished by all the kindness you have shown me. I may have become soiled by sin and not deserve to be saved from Esau. This is the interpretation according to Rashi. That's what he thought. According to Ramban, Jacob declared that he had never been worthy of all of God's kindness. So that makes sense. And then we see here another one for verses 25 through 32, and it's the struggle with the angel, right? Well, we didn't actually finish that one, so we'll go ahead and do that. So after he had dislocated Jacob's hip socket, then he said, "Let me go, for dawn has broken." And he said, this is Jacob, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." He said to him, "What is your name?" He replied, "Jacob." He said, "No longer will it be said that your name is Jacob, but Israel, for you have striven with the divine and with man and have overcome." Then Jacob inquired and said, "Divulge, if you please, your name." And he said, "Why then do you inquire of my name?" And he blessed him there. So Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, for I have seen the divine face to face, yet my life was spared. The sun arose for him as he passed Penuel, and he was limping on his hip. Therefore the children of Israel are not to eat the displaced sinew on the hip socket to this day, because he struck Jacob's hip socket in the displaced sinew. All right, so we're going to read all of these footnotes here. This one is about verses 25 through 32, the struggle with the angel. This confrontation was a cosmic event in Jewish history. The rabbis explained that this man was the guardian angel of Esau in a human guise. The sages teach that every nation has an angel that guides its destiny as an intermediary between it and God. Two nations, however, are unique. Israel is God's own people, just as Esau epitomizes evil, so his angel is the prime spiritual force of evil, Satan himself. Thus, this battle was the eternal struggle between good and evil, between man's capacity to perfect himself and Satan's determination to destroy him spiritually. That's why further on in the Bible it says that Jacob is the son whom God had loved, and God hates Esau. That would make sense. Anyway, let's continue on. This is about Genesis 32, verse 29. The verse explains the name Yisrael as a combination of Yisra, which means to prevail, and over, which is El, or the divine. All right, remember how we were talking about Elohim, or if you see in Beth El, how El means God. So to prevail over the divine, right? The angel. Alrighty. And this one is talking about the prohibition of eating the tendon of an animal's thigh. So two primary tissues are forbidden in the hindquarter. The inner sinew, the sciatic nerve, is forbidden by Torah law. The outer sinew, the common peroneal nerve, is forbidden by the sages. And, okay. I don't know about these, right? I don't know about these. Now, the interpretations, the versions of the Bible that I read, right, the English ones, don't have... Satan's really starting to irritate me, guys. So as I was saying about the eating of the tendon of an animal's thigh, right? The English versions that I have don't say, therefore the children of Israel are not to eat the displaced sinew on the hip socket to this day, because he struck Jacob's hip socket in the displaced sinew. It doesn't say that it was a command, right? They say that it was a tradition that they followed. So this is something that I'm going to have to reconcile in some way or another. I'm going to have to do more research to make sure it's a commandment or it's not a commandment. However, I'm going to write it. I'm going to when I redo all of my instructions to man, I'm going to put that in there as one of the instructions, because if it is a instruction to man, right, and I miss it, then I'm causing you guys to stumble, right? However, if it's not a command, right, and I've already explained that these commands aren't what save us, right, but they prove that we've been saved, right? So following these for your salvation isn't going to get you anywhere. Following them because you're saved is going to get you a lot extra in the kingdom of heaven. What gets you to heaven, what gets you saved, is your belief in Christ, and what determines your position in heaven is how well you follow God's instruction. Now, if this is one of God's instructions, right, it doesn't matter how little or how great, we are to follow it because we love God and we want to show him that we love him, not for anything else. So if it is an instruction, I would say to follow it. I don't know if most people even eat, this kind of sinew in animals. Maybe they do. But like I said, it's not detrimental to your salvation, right? Because we won't even know if it's an instruction or not for sure until everything has been remade. So it's definitely something to keep in mind, because there are certain animals, like whole animals, that we aren't even supposed to be eating. So it wouldn't surprise me if there are parts of animals that we are able to eat that we shouldn't eat either. And it does say that there are certain parts of the animal that are only for God, which means they were only to be, the only thing that they were to be used for right, was to be put on the altar for God, right? Because that was God's portion of the animal when they were sacrificed. So it does make sense to me that it would be something that we're not supposed to eat, but I could also see it being a tradition too. Either way, it's something to think about. Anyway, let's go ahead and continue on. Sorry for all of the cuts, man. Oh, well, that was the end of 32, so let's go ahead and get into 33. Jacob raised his eyes and saw, behold, Esau was coming, and with him were 400 men. So he divided the children among Leah, Rachel, and the two handmaids. He put the handmaids and their children first, Leah and her children next, and Rachel and Joseph last. Then he himself went on ahead of them, and bowed earthward 7 times until he reached his brother. Esau ran toward him, embraced him, fell upon his neck, and kissed him. Then they wept. Alrighty, so here we go. This is another one. Okay, so this is about 33 verse 4, which we just read. In the Torah scroll, there are dots over each letter of the word. Oh my. I'm going to have to look at the name of that word again. But it is an exegetical device that calls attention to the hidden allusions. Some sages hold that Esau's kisses were insincere, but Reshimon Bar Yochai says that at this moment his mercy was aroused and he kissed Jacob with all his heart. So some people believe that these weren't actual tears. They weren't actual tears, that he wasn't crying, or these weren't actual kisses, right? That they were fake kisses. Just like Judas did with Jesus, right? How did he greet him when he betrayed him? He greeted him with a kiss. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody who greets somebody with a kiss, it has plots up their sleeve, right? But it does bring that to mind. So be careful. Those who be wary of those who can get close enough to you to kiss you, because they may be the ones to betray you. And it also kind of, foreshadows what, if Esau is the epitome of evil, right? Then Judas would also fall under that category. And how did he greet Jesus? So maybe he was actually, planning to kill him, but it was all a ruse. But since the Bible doesn't explicitly say that, I'm not going to say that's what it is. He raised his eyes and saw the women and children, and he asked, "Who are these to you?" He answered, "The children whom God has graciously given your servant." Then the handmaids came forward, they and their children, and they bowed down. Leah too came forward with her children, and they bowed down. And afterwards Joseph and Rachel came forward and bowed down. And he asked, "What did you intend by that whole camp that I met?" He answered, "To gain favor in my Lord's eyes." Esau said, "I have plenty. My brother, let what you have remain yours." But Jacob said, "No, I beg of you, if I have now found favor in your eyes, then accept my tribute from me, inasmuch as I have seen your face, which is like seeing the face of a divine being, and you were appeased by me. Please accept my gift which was brought to you, inasmuch as God has been gracious to me, and inasmuch as I have everything." He urged him, and he accepted. Then he said, "Travel on and let us go. I will proceed alongside you." But he said to him, "My Lord knows that the children are tender, and the nursing flocks and cattle are upon me. If they will be driven hard for a single day, then all the flocks will die. Let my Lord go ahead of his servant. I will make my way at my slow pace according to the gait of the drove before me, and the gait of the children, until I come to my Lord Seir." So I guess gait is a Hebrew word that doesn't necessarily have a translation, but I'm going to guess that it is the pace. So even though it doesn't say pace, because it does have pace in its own thing. "Let my Lord go ahead of his servant. I will make my way at my slow pace, according to the pace of the drove before me, and the pace of my children." So that, I think, is what it may mean, but I'm gonna have to look that up at another time and see if that's actually what it meant. and I'll update you guys on that. Then Esau said, "Let me assign to you some of the people who are with me." And he said, "To what purpose? Let me just have favor in my Lord's eyes." So Esau started back that day on his way toward Seir. But Jacob journeyed to Sukkot, or Sukkoth, and built himself a house, and for his livestock he made shelters. He therefore called the name of the place Sukkot. Now there is a footnote here that we're going to read, so let's go ahead and do that. Sukkoth literally means huts or shelters. So he journeyed to shelter, and he built himself a house, and for his livestock he made shelters, right? So that's why the place is called Sukkot, which means shelter. Jacob arrived intact at the city of Shechem, which is in the land of Canaan, upon his arriving from Paddan Aram, and he encamped before the city. He bought the parcel of land upon which he pitched his tent from the children of Hamor, Shechem's father, for 100 kesitas. I don't know what that is. I don't even think it's 100 shekels. It may be a different unit of currency. He set up an altar there and proclaimed, "God, the God of Israel." Okay, so we have a couple of footnotes here, and that was the last sentence of chapter 33. So that's the last chapter that we're going to do for right now, and then in another video we'll do 34 and 35. But to finish off with these footnotes, literally, this is for 33 verse 18, and literally the word for intact, right, is shalem, which means whole or perfect, unimpaired. Jacob arrived whole, right? He arrived unimpaired. Jacob arrived intact physically, having recovered from the injury to his hip, intact financially, although he had showered a lavish gift upon Esau, and intact in his learning, having forgotten nothing while in Laban's house. Alrighty, and then we got another one for 33:20, which is talking about the altar that he proclaimed God, the God of Israel. By erecting the altar and giving it its name, or giving it this name, Jacob fulfilled the vow that he had made 22 years earlier before leaving the land. Interesting. Alright guys, sorry for all of the cuts. Ever since, I think yesterday, my phone has ran out of space, and that's never happened before. I just deleted all of the videos I had previously. Don't worry, I can download them from online, but it's kind of weird that all of that's happening. But then again, it's really not weird that all of that's happening if I'm trying to read, God's word, and there is constant distraction and problems going on that I know Satan is really getting upset that I'm reading it. So I'm gonna just keep on doing. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed, and once again, I'm sorry for all of the cuts and stuff like that. I think I know what I'm gonna have to invest in here now, and I was hoping that I didn't have to do that considering I've got a phone, but if this is how it's going to be and it's making me very irritated, I don't think we're going to be able to do that any much longer. I might have to go and invest in a camera and camera gear and stuff like that. So if you guys have any suggestions on cameras and camera supplies and stuff like that, I'll definitely take them. Anyways, I'm going to be praying for you guys. I'm going to be praying for myself. You guys do the same. Meditate on the word. Meditate on how good God is, meditate on, anything godly, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll see you later.